Morning, morning, everyone. Hope everyone's doing good this morning. I am excited to trade today since yesterday I did some kind of studying and thinking about entries and got some exciting changes I'm doing, which I'll walk through in a second. Slept pretty crappy last night because it was super hot in my place, so it's kind of annoying, but not bad enough to, just straight up skip trading. Gonna quickly look at the markets briefly, but then kind of go through kind of my thoughts on some changes I'm doing. What did I just click? Kind of pretty solid move down yesterday. Question is that it? Or are we, going further? To something like here, 50%, kind of middle of the range. Big gap though to fill right here. Oil's making some big moves to the downside. That's kind of expected after what we've got going on. Definitely, like, big picture is, that's a pretty big rejection candle on a daily. This I could totally see, even healthy wise, like totally pulling back down to here before pushing up makes total sense. Obviously, we could just like straight up double top, and have more downside before continuing higher. But so what I'm kind of thinking about, let's see. See if I can do this properly. Yeah. Is I've been changing my trading so much recently. And first it was, it's all about trying to incrementally do things. And hopefully you guys seeing that process in real time is helpful. And obviously it's not always pretty in terms of results. But it's a part of trading, right? Sorry, I lost something here I'm looking for. But so like what I've been doing is thinking about, recently, like if I talk about yesterday's trade, is I've been focusing on my stops and the signal to get in for the big picture swing, and I haven't really been focusing on my entries that much. And my entries have been, I would say, far, from the stop. Like the risk reward of where I've been getting in. This is not the trade yesterday. That is like 2 a.m. this morning. Where I was jumping in was the signal was here, and so I'd be jumping in like up here, and putting my stop all the way at the lows. The stop I think is good. I love where my stops are, but the entries you can see they're just so far, especially in this market. And I've been trying to get more aggressive with jumping in based on the signals and more focusing on the stops right now. And now I'm kind of shifting towards thinking about the entries, and kind of thinking about, okay, I don't want to be chasing this I want to be, because, my risk reward is really crappy here. If we went up and pushed the highs yesterday, this was the easy money. And to me, that was like, okay, that's probably where the trade goes if it kind of goes. For what I would capture, it could pull back and continue, but likely it goes kind of up to there. And based on the risk reward, that's only like 1.5x. That's not good enough risk reward for what I'm doing. And so what I'm wanting to do in these spots is try and enter in, start. I've literally never done this before with futures. I've always entered in on a stop order on kind of momentum break to the upside, but I'm wanting to enter in on limit orders when it kind of pulls back. And so, theoretically, the idea here is, okay, if the signal is to get long as this candlestick right here, well, I want to, after that signal happens, I don't want to enter in here because that's kind of not a good price. I want to be entering in if it pulls back, because then the price I get is way better. And if it just shoots up, that's okay. I miss it, right? But overall, generally things pull back and give you a better price, and the trade obviously is still there. And so if I pull back here and entered in somewhere kind of a 50% pullback, I think that's what I want to try and start doing, is roughly targeting a 50% pullback entry. So somewhere in here, you can see the risk reward ratio drastically changes. And that's where I think the math will start to play out better. So it's that's where it's coming into play of thinking about, where do I enter in on these setups? And so it's kind of like I was looking at these trades yesterday of like, this is the trade from yesterday of, okay, here is, different areas where I could enter based on, the signals here, the bottoms here, it shoots up, enter in maybe on a pullback at this level, here, or if it pulls back here, enter in here somewhere, versus before, like yesterday, I entered in here and here. Like, that's just so far away from the stop. And, that's, to me, that's what's comfortable. And I was talking with my coach a little bit about this yesterday of like, emotionally and mentally, it feels better to do that because you're entering in with more confirmation, right? Like if you enter in up here, it feels like, I'm entering in as it starts to kind of go in my favor. Now, obviously it can pull back against you, but you're entering in with momentum, and theoretically more often it feels good because there's that confirmation of movement in your direction, versus frankly entering in on this kind of big bar that moves down here is scary, because that definitely looks like, oh, this could just puke lower. And so that's going to be an adjustment for me on entering in there, but trying to keep the idea that I would have entered in up here and all I'm looking for is just a better price. And so technically thinking about, I already want to be in the trade. I just want to get a better price on the trade, because that plays out better over time. And so, that's kind of thinking about, I went through a bunch of previous trades. Like this was a trade, I think, from last week where, I entered in up here. This is where you can see on the chart, it has that little dotted line. If I entered in here and, I eventually sold up, it was still a profitable trade. But I could have entered in maybe here when it initially pulled back and started to reverse, or after this signal happened from this, like, to me, this big candlestick is still a really good signal. But putting an order here, kind of at a 50% pullback between here and here, gives me a much better price. And I probably would have, that in a way doubles with my stop all the way down here. versus, you know, entering it up here. I'd be entering it down here. It's almost cuts my risk reward ratio or my stop in half, which then essentially doubles my reward. So that's kind of what I'm thinking a lot of these. Sometimes, you know, the big risk always is like, oh, well, what if it just does this? And to me, that's not worth chasing. You know, like maybe I could enter in here on a really small amount. But again, like that's chasing. And I think that's okay, right? The idea is that I'm not going to get good risk reward on those. I would want to wait for kind of a pullback before entering, and accepting that it's kind of okay for me to miss kind of this a move like this, because generally this doesn't happen. Most of the trades, you know, entering in here, like this is another example, entering in, I would enter in up here and I'd rather be entering in down here because most of them have some kind of pullback before they actually move higher, I've realized over time. And so I'd rather be, you know, entering in much better of a spot that makes my price, you know, much better. So that's kind of what I'm thinking going forwards. You know, just knowing that that's gonna take me a little time to figure out. And you know, I've thought about how I want to do it some, but also some of it's gonna just be I've got to figure it out in real time because every trade is slightly different. But you know, my entry model and everything is pretty much the same as always. You know, I'm looking for the same thing. It's just a slight micro change of how I'm entering. But I think it'll very drastically change the potential outcome of trades. And so it's kind of been something I've been working towards as I've been focusing more on the big picture instead of the micro patterns, and as well as scaling in, scaling out. And so I think this is just another addition that is going to allow things to just work out even more. So that's kind of my thoughts there on kind of changes I'm doing right now. And you know, like what I did before and what you'll see in a lot of my videos, because you know, some of my videos are older in the sense of like, you know, I filmed them maybe a month ago before they actually go live, but they you know, I'd be entering in on something like a higher low here and I put my stop here. And so in that sense, it's like, okay, my stop actually was tight here and I would get the good risk reward of like 3x. But I've recently changed to being like, okay, I still want to enter in here, but I want to put my stop at the lows because to me that's actually where a good stop is. But that, you know, that cuts your risk reward in like half. And so, you know, that is something I was working over the last couple of weeks and seeing how that played out and getting adjusted to that, and now realizing, okay, I need to now reduce my entry in a way to get that good risk reward ratio back because I lost it. And in this market, it's just, you know, my wins have been smaller than I think they should have been, you know, and so the math hasn't been really playing out in my favor. And so that's kind of an adjustment to help deal with that. And so that's kind of how I'm seeing that, and something that I think will improve things a lot. So let me kind of just run through what I'm seeing this morning. Just to start with the daily, you know, we've had a big run up here, and yesterday that's a pretty bearish candlestick. I think we could still go either direction. we might just kind of sit here. Is today FOMC? Yes, it is. So that's kind of a massive thing today, is the fact that we have interest rates coming out today. And so it's hard to know, I think people are expecting an increase because last week, this sell-off was triggered by inflation coming out being, I think it was 4.2%, higher than expected, or just it's high inflation. And so that kind of triggered this sell-off because people are thinking, oh, they're going to raise rates. That's going to start slowing this crazy up move we've had down. Inflation and rates are such a big macroeconomic thing. They do affect the market. And so now that we're back up at the highs and this actual release is now today at 2 p.m. Eastern, the market might, because it's so big, it might kind of just sit there. Now, actually, interesting enough, too, it looks like Trump is speaking today at 9:30. I have no idea what he's talking about. But anytime that guy opens his mouth or tweets about the market in some capacity or something that's going to affect the market, it definitely causes volatility. And so and it doesn't pop up on here that he speaks every time. So I'm assuming he's speaking about something that might be interesting. And then also we have minor news at 10 a.m. That's not really going to do that much. We have oil news at 10:30. That usually causes oil to kind of sit there and then spike a little, but usually not a crazy change. So I think really the market, we could have some volatility this morning, and then maybe after an hour or two start to slow down while it sits and waits for interest rates. So could be kind of a slow morning after an initial spike, especially because frankly, I think the markets, the NASDAQ here is, I think we can come down here. There's the two levels I'm kind of looking for pre-market levels. The most recent ones is this one. Kind of where this move initially started. And honestly, frankly, it mainly looking at this swing high. So it's like, okay, if we come up here, do we sell off? Same thing on the bottom side. I think this swing right here is kind of aligning up with here. And I think if we break this, there's just this fair value gap here that we'd probably just shoot lower. There's really not that much support in there. There's a tiny bit here that's a tiny bit higher. And so you could maybe pull this up a little bit. But definitely we would get, I think, a decent potential to drop through that level or that area if it happened. And then oil's not really doing much other than just selling off pretty hard. Just to look at it on a daily chart. We're at the major lows here. Oil's definitely had a big sell-off here. It could pop up a little bit before it continues lower. I don't really know much about macro oil price now at this point in terms of, before my rough idea was, hey, it's just going to be choppy because we're just so back and forth in the Middle East, making a deal. And now that it seems like an actual deal has come into play, that's really started to drop oil prices. And so I don't know if it's actually going to continue to drop, or if there's enough damage here that we're going to stay somewhat elevated for a while in terms of, because from my understanding, there's pretty big amounts of infrastructure that was full on destroyed that is going to take time to repair. So that could keep oil prices elevated for a while. And in terms of just like trends and stuff, I'm not really seeing that much on a 5-minute here. We're kind of just middle of the range right now on a 5-minute, and so I don't really see a crazy amount to do, I would say, waiting until the market opens, kind of see a spike and stuff like that. So I'll try and look at some questions for the next couple of minutes until the market opens. You do need to subscribe if you want to ask questions. I don't really look at gold. I actually don't look at the S&P 500 futures anymore. I literally just look at the NASDAQ. It just kind of helps simplify things. It's better to just try and, my whole philosophy is the simpler the better. Master one thing. There's no point in trying to overdo it. And so that's why it's like I only use one strategy. The only strategy I use is a reversal strategy. I look at to see if it comes to one of these zones, and I look for a reversal. I don't take a reversal every time. I kind of have a, entry checklist that helps me with that. What risk reward am I aiming for now? Roughly the same thing. Just in terms of entries, I'm looking to get in on more of a limit order. So it might actually end up being like a market if touched order. So like if the market kind of bottoms here, and I like that as a signal, like to me, if this is a signal, I'll put in an order, let's say, I might say, okay, 50% pullback of this is somewhere here. I might put an order in here saying, okay, I want to buy if it pulls back to this level. And then I'll get filled. And then if it plays out, obviously, in my favor, the risk reward is just way better. And so that's kind of what I want to do going forwards, just because before I've been jumping in up here and the risk reward is just way worse. I mean, if you jump in here, 3x is right here. And if you jump in up here, 3x is up here. Like it's literally doubles your risk reward. Obviously, it's not going to work out perfectly like that every time. This could, make some losses happen that wouldn't before. There's a whole array of possibilities. And so that's why it's kind of going to be just part of something of, figuring out in real time. You can only theorize and back test so much. I'm much more in the philosophy of forward testing, just because back testing, it's just so much of trading is about execution and mental, and the mental side of trading. And so part of me, I just have to feel the emotions of what it feels like to even enter in on that style of entry, because it's just different to me. The amount of risk I'm using per trade is generally 1,500 is the total that I'll risk. And so I'm working on scaling in, sometimes half size, or I've even started to think about, is there a possibility of scaling in like a quarter size in certain spots. I like to just stand versus sit, just because it's helps you, the blood flow, stay engaged. I feel like if I'm just sitting here, it's a lot easier to just kind of get a little lethargic. Is it possible to trail my stop up if I'm in profit and stuff by half? Yeah, I see what you're saying. There's just so many ways to manage things. And a lot of the times I like to do it based on kind of the swing. But like yesterday, I definitely think yesterday I could have I think I got a little too married to the trade. I think I could have cut my losses in half, but that's obviously the little bit of that's hindsight. But I think it was a good spot to do that in terms of definitely the big picture was showing, and it's like okay, the chances that it actually ended up playing out, I think were less and less, and just getting out and reducing that risk was good. But again, that's something to just kind of stash away in the journal and learn from. Have I found myself overthinking the market at times? Pretty much every day, I almost feel like. But having my specific strategy helps keep you focused on what matters. Because otherwise, I feel like this market's so crazy. I mean, the market's been really difficult for the last like 2-3 months at this point, and so it just has not been easy trading, and so just getting used to even more of just entering in when you're not fully confident, but knowing that your strategy says to get in is really important. Just kind of waiting on the market here to open. Seeing as we're about to open here, I'll quickly run through things for people that are just showing up and kind of show you guys what I'm thinking about today. Good morning as usual. Hope you had a good reset from yesterday. So for this morning, I mean, I think we're kind of in no man's land right now. Like yesterday, I really like this level. I like the big picture potential for a bottom here. Obviously, it didn't work out. Actually, it was up here. Sorry. And so right now, I don't think there's a great level on either side of where we're at the moment. I think the bigger picture trend has kind of been slowed. We had this big uptrend yesterday, and that thing just got totally broken. And we've kind of given up kind of some of this overexcited move up here. And so we could totally just pop this up. I mean, I think that's a possibility. But we do have FOMC today. And so I think that makes it more likely that we maybe get a little volatility, but more than likely we kind of just sit and wait for that just because people are expecting, I think, a rate hike. And so that's just big anticipation. That's what triggered this whole sell-off basically. And so now coming to it of like, okay, what's actually going to happen is pretty big. I think if we do get down to here, I might look for a long. Especially if we get kind of an initial flush in the morning. I think same with the highs up here. And I think if we break this, there's just this fair value gap. There's nothing here that would really stop the market from selling off to this support level. Could do a little fake and then go higher, but that's, kind of big picture of what I'm thinking. NASDAQ on a daily, basically hitting a double top right now. Again, I think we could go up from here or we could go down. If we're going to continue this major uptrend, I mean, coming down to here, somewhere, a 50% pullback of this move up totally is reasonable. Or obviously we could come down here and go sideways, chop for a while, or, pop all the way down to here. But that's kind of much more big picture stuff. I think today is way more likely to just have some back and forth action, and eventually after the first hour or two kind of just start to chop into the news. And yeah, Trump is speaking actually, I guess right now. I don't know if he's actually starting to speak right now. Sometimes they start a little late. Those aren't news releases that happen exactly at the time. but that might cause some volatility in the first 30 minutes. That would, just kind of generally line up with what I'm planning to do anyway. On a 5 minute, I mean, this thing definitely looks like it wants to continue up for a minute. I mean, maybe there's this uptrend. Market's open, so we'll kind of see what goes on here. Might just get some initial spikes. The volatility this morning actually seems, I don't know why it seems like it's kind of less than normal, but maybe that's just the overnight action. Because I was just looking at, that's a pretty standard opening candle. So we'll kind of see what the first few minutes give us here. I've been noticing my timer is slightly off. And I wonder if, for some reason, my computer clock or something on NinjaTrader is not exactly working here. Because if you look at my bar timer here, it goes negative seconds, which isn't the biggest deal because it's just a couple seconds, but I wonder if like my computer clock is slightly off from the real thing. Because it goes negative to about 4 or 5 seconds. 6 seconds before actually swapping over. I don't know if anyone knows how to fix that. I might have to just Google that later. Restart, but I have that every day. Like it's kind of just there. It's not just removing the add-on. I put on because I have my custom add-on is the one by the candlestick, but the actual bar timer is the native one on NinjaTrader. So I would think that wouldn't actually cause any issues. And they're clearly synced. Nice little rip lower right now. There is a possibility of like hitting this overnight support. This is definitely more of a minor one. But I definitely would say like there's a bottom here, kind of the top of where this bottomed here, this swing. That usually actually works pretty well, and that lined up here. So definitely like this, I would say this is a minor support zone. Yeah, it still looks like it's going negative. Sync clock. Yeah, that sounds more right about what the issue is. Let's see if that works. How much does it cost to buy 4 MNQ contracts? I think it's $200 worth of margin each. So that puts you at $800. And that's margin. That's not actual cost. Let's see if that sync works. I might need a restart, which I'm not going to do, but oh, that worked. Cool. Thank you. Nice little spike here on a 5-minute. Makes a. Why is this? Huh. Oh, I guess because this hasn't finished forming yet, it's not showing this fair value gap. But there's one forming here on this move down, which is nice in terms of healthy, an unhealthy trend to the downside. MNQ are 100 per contract. I always get mixed up if the normal NQ contract is 2,000 or 1,000. I can just look up the actual PDF here. Okay, it is 1,000. So it's 100 per contract for MNQ. Basically double the ES. How am I getting on with trading daily charts and bigger swings? I haven't done as much as I would like, to be honest. So I don't have too much to talk about that. Trying to see if I don't really like this move in terms of a move to reverse. It's not big enough for me. There is a tiny fair value gap here, but really it's just a choppy range and like middle of the, this isn't that big of a level to bounce off of. It could, but I think down here is the better spot to look for something. And so I don't really like I'd rather look for this to move and break lower a little bit more. Even if there's kind of a support level down here that it's close to. So there's not really too much to do right now for me. Sometimes trading is, I've been taking a lot of trades recently. But sometimes you just gotta, it's hard to know how to shift into recognizing when it's like, okay, actually I need to just kind of sit and wait things out a little bit. This is my real account. I don't trade prop firms. Risk about $1,500 per trade at the most. Still wanting to size up to 2,500. But I don't really have a specific date on that. It's a lot more of like, there's a lot of changes I'm figuring out right now in my trading in terms of, scaling and now changing my entry style as well to more looking for pullbacks and limit orders. I'm trading on NinjaTrader here. That's kind of the platform I generally suggest if you're wanting to try futures out. They are really tailored for starting out a small account. So makes it easy to start practicing with the demo trading and figuring things out, and then slowly scaling in. You can probably start with like $200 or $300. There's a link for that in the description if you want to check it out. Trump's still talking. Yeah, just kind of seeing if I don't see a reason to really do anything until maybe Trump says something that really spikes the market, and then look to see, okay, is that going to reverse it, or is that he said something crazy that the market's just going to shoot in one direction over. So I think it's it's kind of just a waiting game right now, seeing how it plays out a little bit. I don't want to take a long off of this. To me, the risk reward and big picture just isn't there. To me, I lean way more into the big picture of like, okay, what do I think the big picture is doing? Where is the big picture, potential for a reversal? And to me, that's down here or kind of up here. And this is just, if you just think about it, we're just in this choppy range that's just garbage. And for someone who's scalping, you could take a little trade here. But that's just not my style. Is Tradeovate the same as NinjaTrader? At least the web app is. NinjaTrader bought Tradeovate. I don't know about the brokerage back end. I think they might be. I could be totally wrong here. But I thought I might have heard something that Tradeovate might be trying to close Tradeovate. But maybe not. Just if there's enough people on there, and it's same thing really. So. But the NinjaTrader web is the exact same. It's literally a copy. But if you're on NinjaTrader, you get access to the desktop platform as well. And I would assume more continuous updates. But at the end of the day, it's just all personal preference. The main thing is marginal requirements, and that kind of side of things. Some of the bigger brokerages like Thinkorswim or Schwab and stuff like that, they don't have small intraday margin requirements that allow you to start small. But some of these other ones like NinjaTrader, Tradeovate do allow that. How'd the trade go yesterday? It ended up being a loss. The only mistake I still liked it. The only in hindsight, I think the entry was fine. I think the only mistake I did was I could see the big picture potential that it was starting to make a lower high here and could start to sell off. And so I think I could have cut my losses in half. Because frankly, the signal, at least on a 5 minute, what I was kind of going off of was like, okay, this is my stop was here. I think I entered in somewhere here. This is a great head and shoulders on a 5 minute. You know, it's like, okay, that looks like it could shoot up from there. Um, and I should have moved my stop to here as soon as this candlestick on a 5-minute printed, and I didn't, and I just let it kind of go fully against me. And that's kind of hard sometimes about knowing how much wiggle room to give, because in a choppy market, you do want to give it more wiggle room, just because otherwise you get chopped out, right? And in a choppy market, it's funny, it's counterintuitive. Like you want to get out sooner because it's almost agonizing staying in the market as it just goes with you, against you, with you, against you. And those are the times where it's more likely to do like a little flush fake out and then go in your direction. And if you trailed your stop up a little bit, you just knock yourself out. And so that's kind of what I was thinking. But kind of the big picture started to, and so I don't like to really look at kind of those moves as much and get too sucked into the micro moves and patterns. But when it was kind of showing on a 5-minute that the big picture was kind of potentially changing, I think that was a little different. Just a random little bottom we have here this morning, coming up to the highs. I mean, I don't know if I'm really going to look for a short here either, because again, it's just in this choppy range. I think the likelihood that it just sells off here and continues lower, it's hard for, in terms of like a stop and the structure of the trade, I feel like doesn't make that much sense. I think if we get one more push up to more of the overnight highs, I think I like that a little better. Cup and handle formation, I could totally pop up here and continue higher. I don't really look for a cup and handle formation though. That's not really my strategy. You know, I'm looking for more reversals. And so down here, like I would be looking for more something like that. Or if we pop up here, I would look for more something like, to catch a reversal down. But this, if it's just going to do this, like to me, it's too tight to trade for my strategy. It's not really, it's just kind of, because it could pull back here, touch this, and that's like 50% of this move. And it could just start to kind of consolidate. And this volatility could just get sucked out of it. It's FOMC today. It's one of those days where it's more likely to chop than not. I mean, if I see more movement to one direction, I'll look to see and take a trade against that. But, at the moment, it's just it's just in this range. FOMC is at 2 p.m. Eastern. I haven't taken a trade yet. It will show you on my chart. There'll be a dollar value and there'll be orders that show up on the screen. Is Trump actually speaking right now, or has it just been delayed? See if I can find it. Or has he finished speaking? Delayed? Yeah, I just see something that it's delayed or we will begin shortly. I don't even know if that's the real one. I've got something. Looks like he's talking here. It's the correct date. So he is talking now. Yeah, the market's not really doing anything from it. Just a little whip, bait back and forth. And so I want to see us break out of these two levels. To me that would be more it could be more of a trap and a fake versus like here is there's just not enough to risk for. I just Googled Trump speaking on YouTube and it came up pretty easily. I closed it, so I don't have the link anymore. On a 5 minute, this is just starting to look worse and worse. I mean, this is just garbage right now on a 5 minute. Like we need to move somewhere before I'm interested in doing anything here. If you see more than a 2 or 3 second delay on the live stream, it's probably because you aren't either live directly on YouTube, like you need to go to the most real time, or your internet is delaying it. Biggest coffee cup you've seen? Yeah, it's basically a bowl. I could definitely eat cereal or something out of this. It is just a bowl with a handle. ES looks even worse. Holy cow. Yeah, the market's just sitting here right now. You're gonna see, we still got 10 o'clock. That's kind of another reversal timing. We could shoot down and pop down here and maybe get a reversal. But just kind of waiting for the market to get out of this chop. Sometimes that's just how it is. Do I do Ironmans? I've done a half Ironman. This was from like, I don't know, a couple of years ago at this point. I hate swimming. Swimming was the worst part. Biking and running were good. I just hate swimming though. Swimming in the pool, like it's just it does feel good when you're doing it, but every time I had to go do a swimming workout, I hated it. It was just not as much fun as I would much rather go run Like right now, I've shifted a lot more into trail running. Like I'm into much more like ultra races right now and mountain trail runs. I would way rather do that. I don't really want to go biking on a paved road in the city either. So I don't know if I'll ever do an Ironman again. And I didn't do a full one; it was a half. And thankfully, the swim was in a river, so it was with the current, and so it took like half the time. It probably would have taken me if there was no current, like 40 or 50, 45 or 50 minutes of swimming. And I think I did it in like 27 minutes. And that was just because there was a big current in the river that I was swimming with. Did someone get me into futures or did I do it on my own? I don't know, back and forth a little bit. I definitely did. Um, I think it was kind of, I did research. I was like, okay, I don't like options anymore. I just wasn't happy with how options were and how trading them felt over time. I just didn't like the complexities of them. And so I was looking for something that gave me, I really liked, obviously, the leverage options gave me, but the simplicity of, I wanted to have the simplicity of like trading stocks. And so that just, I went down a rabbit hole and that eventually landed on futures. My main reversal zone here is kind of drawn off of pretty much yesterday's close or overnight low here. Um, so big picture, like that's the main bottom we have right now. I'm just thinking, okay, we might touch here, and bounce off of it. Now we could just blow right through it too. Um, but essentially, it's like I'm looking to see. I like to look for reversals, and I want to see the market. These are areas where it's highly likely, and so that's why I just wait for it to get to those levels. Am I into mushroom foraging? No, but um, I do like them in terms of like, seeing them. Nothing really happens on Fed days. Yeah, there can definitely, I mean, from my experience, there can definitely be a trade and a move in the morning. Um, but it can be tricky. And then definitely you got to be prepared that things just might dry up very quickly and just sit there, especially as you get closer to um, the release. And we do have minor news at 10 a.m. I mean, it's very minor though. Um, from my experience, it's not really going to do anything. So I haven't taken a trade this morning just because it's just been a chop fest right now. Did the tax efficiency trade chain come into my decision to trade futures? I would say no, but it was obviously like a cherry on top. I mean the at the basics, it's like, well, I gotta just find something I can be profitable with first. I don't, the only reason you gotta worry about taxes if you're making money, and if you're not making money, that doesn't matter. Um, And so it was much more about finding something that kind of fit my trading personality and how I wanted to trade. We're breaking through this level here. I'm going to keep it on my chart because we might pop up and sell off of it. But just kind of reduce it a little. And then here comes the news here in a second too. Advice for someone who is stuck since early June. Well, if you're stuck since early June and you've only been trading for 2 weeks, that's not long enough to, you need more time trading. If you've just been trading it on a loss streak since June, I mean, definitely like reset, like take some time off. Maybe reduce your trading size if you're trading real money, or go back to a sim account if you can't do that and you just need some time to rebuild that confidence. There's nothing wrong with that. I had so many times where I went back and from either blowing my account or I'm like, hey, I've lost confidence in my strategy. My emotions are just all over the place, and demo trading or simulated trading really helps you just focus on the strategy, because the emotions of money being on the line isn't there. And then you can rebuild that confidence in the strategy, come back to real money, and it just helps you, I think, stick to the strategy of, you have that logic in the back of your mind of like, okay, I know the strategy works, and I just have to navigate my emotions of executing it. We're kind of touching this area where I would think the support is. It could definitely be a little higher than this zone. See if there's kind of a downtrend here. We are at kind of a reversal timing here. Just gonna remove that. In terms of looking for a long here, I have to see if this could be a bottom, but I think one more flush lower and a big rejection I think would be ideal. To me, this isn't a solid bottom yet. I think if we get one kind of big push here and then one more push, that to me is much more of a signal that it's getting overextended and it could reverse. Kind of break into this zone a little bit more, kind of test kind of down here or even the lows more. And if this is going to pop up here, normally it's like I would think, okay, I'm going to enter in here long. But if this reverses completely, to me, more of a signal would be, kind of a 50%. What I want to try and start doing is kind of a 50% pullback of that. And so that would be much more like entering in down here on a pullback, and would make the risk reward ratio a lot better. But if this isn't going to reject it like that and it's going to be choppy, we might just, continue like this. I want to see a flush, and I'm not seeing that yet necessarily. A break above here, I think, would be a good signal to the long side. There it is. So I definitely like that as a long signal. And I think I'm just going to half size, and I'm going to put in an order on a potential pullback here. And that's nerve-wracking, because to me, I feel like if it pulls back all the way down to here, I think that it's going to continue lower, but that's not necessarily true. And as it goes up, I might need to adjust and pull this contract up a little bit, because this is something new for me. but I want to try and keep it at this kind of 50% level. So it's kind of at that spot. I'm just going to leave it where it is. I'm nervous if I don't get filled. That's the scary part about these limit orders is like, what if I don't get filled? It stabs a little bit and my order's not quite high enough. And that's just something I'm going to have to get better at over time because this is a new entry style for me. And maybe 50% is too deep of a pullback. And so this is where, to me, forward testing this is important. And part of me is like, oh, this is still in this downtrend. I'm just going to let it fill, though. And kind of see where it goes from here. And if it stops me out, I'm okay with that. Again, I'm trying to just get some data on what it feels like to enter in like this on these pullbacks and limit orders. Because big picture to me, like, it's kind of, this could be setting up a little head and shoulders. And I like this break above this. Like, this is a pretty nice, I think if this does do an aggressive bottom, this could definitely be the low. Like, this was a nice signal here of a rejection of that low, and it barely made a new low, and then boom, buyers came in. I definitely think the downtrend not being broken here is kind of a risk. But the idea here, I think, is that, there's kind of this unhealthy move, and we might pop up here, at least up to here. And then, I think the easy money would be somewhere up here. But again, it's choppy today. And I am not going to go to break even yet until it, I think, pops up to here at least. But it's definitely interesting in terms of, it's just so, it's so different in terms of like, oh, I would be entering in. My previous entry might not be in yet, but would be up here. And it's just such a worse entry in terms of all the way up here is like, okay, my hope is maybe 2x. And if this trade does work out, it's like, okay, I can get 3.5x if it pops up to here. And so that's just way better, in terms of, I only need to win 40% of the time, 30% of the time. And that is totally, I can do that. And so for anyone who kind of missed, I talked about this when I started the stream. I would highly recommend going back after the stream is over and look at, I kind of walk through kind of my thought process and what I'm doing and why I'm shifting to more of this kind of style. Main idea is, though, that it's obviously my risk reward ratio is just way better. And before I was just, mainly focusing on stops, and now it's like, okay, I'm getting the entry figured out now. And so here, I think I'm going to move my stop up to here at least. I think I'm going to move it to break even. I think on a day like today, I think it's either going to work out or it's going to just come back down and just be crappy. And I'm totally fine just taking it off at break even. I don't want to get married to this. This gives it a little bit of wiggle room, and I don't need to give it more than that. Obviously, it could have one more pullback here. And maybe I should have my stop below this pullback. But I think this candlestick is pretty bullish. I think if we give that back up, that's not a great sign. And obviously, if it just pulls back here and knocks me out and continues up, that's going to suck. But the main thing was practicing the execution of entering in on this kind of style. I think there maybe is a little uptrend right here. Part of me wants to move my stop below this, just because it does feel a little choppy. I think I'm going to do that. Just to, because that to me does, I did feel like I was moving my stop up a little quick. Obviously, I could just be adding on risk, but I really like going with the price versus going break even first. Especially because that's the thing about this entry model too, is like because I can get into profit way faster, it might cause me to move. I'm going to move my stop now below this candlestick though, because I think that's a good fake lower. And if it goes higher, great. And if it pulls back and continues lower, I think that just doesn't look good. You know, I don't want to get married to it. So, but it's just kind of choppy here. And part of me wants to keep my stop all the way at the lows, but I think this is the correct decision to just get out there at break even. We'll see. And it wasn't quite up. I think if it popped up here to 2x, I would have started to take some profits. But here was way too early. You know, I'm looking for this kind of move. I'm not looking for this. So out on that trade, I'm going to kind of see how it develops. If this just pops up, it'll eat me up the rest of the day that I moved my stop up a little too tight, but market's just kind of choppy. You know, kind of definitely back and forth from yesterday. If I gave it too much room, and maybe today is like I could have given a little bit more room, you know, staying below this low. That's how interesting thing about changing this is I feel like having the being up 1x, I'm up 1x way faster. And you know, before it's like if I was up here and I was up 1x, it's like, okay, well, I should definitely go break even now. But it's almost because my, you know, it's my risk reward is a little tighter. Even though I'm up 1x, I almost need to not move my stop up sooner. And I should have at least maybe kept it here, waiting for a little bit of a pullback because this did look good. But it's hard because it's like, well, it could just pop here and sell off, or pop here and then reverse up, or, you know, having it here. That's the hard part about, you know, every market is slightly different. And now that it's done this, obviously that sucks. But that's, you know, the main thing is that my entry was good. I'm happy about that. Like that's my main focus right now, is focusing on entering on that pullback. And frankly, I did that perfectly. Like I waited out this garbage, setup was there, jumped in, felt a little nervous, unsure of exactly what to do, but I entered exactly how I wanted. And then, you know, not really fully figured out how to do the management side of things yet, but that's a part of real-time trade adjustment. And yeah, so that's, I think at this point I won't enter it if it pulls back again, just because, you know, if I was still in the trade, my stop would be break even, and I'd probably be trying to scale out half, maybe a limit up here. You know, it's just kind of choppy right now. It's just in this kind of upwards channel. I think the first kind of resistance level is definitely here from this kind of bottom. So it's kind of seeing how does it break through that and pop up to the highs. Your order was rejected on entry. I did use a market if touched order. I definitely am not planning to use limits. I want to use a market if touched order. I don't care if it slips a couple ticks. I would rather, if it pulls back to that area I want to get in, I would rather just get in. I don't, you don't want to nitpick. The tool I'm using, this risk reward tool, is only for NinjaTrader desktop platform. It's custom one I've made. There's a link for it in the description. Yeah, at this point, like I would probably have a trailing stop pretty like below this candle. And just with, just with the idea that, hey, like I'd love a spike up to here to get out half at 2x, and then maybe trail up the rest, seeing if it, does kind of a sloppy uptrend and try to get up to here. But up to here, I would probably be out. Because today I think is just, it could be like this. Actually looking at these lows here. Could totally do some, oh, that's already broken. So yeah, we'll see. Well, that's hard in hindsight, but I think the biggest mindset thing is always just not to be focused on the outcome like that. I'm way more focused on the process, and I'm happy with the entry and stuff like that. So obviously it stings a little. It would have been great to have that trade work out perfectly as soon as I did that change, but it's always focused on the long term, right? So I'm gonna call it for the day there. That what to me was the trade of the day. We came out down to a nice level. I thought there was a good potential for reversal. Obviously, it played out well and executed. So I am pretty much live every day on YouTube, and so I will see you guys tomorrow. If you have any beginner questions, I have a ton of YouTube videos that are really polished and really well done that will walk you through futures, my strategy. So if you're kind of new, you can go there and understand kind of what's going on. So you can come into the live streams a little more knowing what I'm looking for every day. So how much did I lose on that trade? I didn't lose anything. I got out at break even. So I will be on tomorrow, 9 a.m. Eastern. I would think that the market, probably will start. It could volatile for a little bit longer, but definitely come like a couple hours before the news release of FOMC today, it could kind of chop. And then, as always with FOMC, you get some volatility. It'll probably open and do this. So, yeah, anyone else still in the trade? I mean, I would be trailing up right now and looking to get out most here. There's kind of maybe an uptrend like here that you can use, but definitely today I don't think it's likely that we push higher. Maybe you can see how it reacts to up here and if it kind of just slowly keeps going. But based on today, it's definitely like you could have a pretty deep pullback to the middle of the range before it continues higher. And so it's like, do you really want to hold through that? I think it's more likely based on today, it's good to be aggressive of taking your profits. So, yeah, that's all I got for the day. Appreciate everyone being here as always. And I will see you guys tomorrow.